Ahow! 10. Knowledgeable history facts about Native American. Before we dive in, I like to welcome new subscribers. Welcome Fred Tan and good luck Gideon. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. And for those who are not yet subscribed, feel free to smash that subscribe button because we notice 99.9% viewing this content are not yet subscribing. So please subscribe. Back to the content. Native Americans spoke more than 300 languages. North America was once home to over 300 languages, but many disappeared due to government assimilation policies. President Ulysses S. Grant aimed to replace Native American languages with English. Native Americans were displaced and educated in English, leading to a decline in their languages. As of 2013, 169 native languages were spoken in the U.S., with many having very few speakers. In 1990, the Native American Language Act was passed to support language preservation, as most Native American languages are at risk of disappearing by 2050. The first newspaper in a Native American language began publishing in 1828. Prior to colonization, Native American languages were transmitted orally. After the arrival of Europeans, some tribes began using writing systems. Sequoyah, a member of the Cherokee Nation, created a syllabary with 86 characters in 1821 to enable his people to read and write in their language. Dr. Ellen Cushman, a Cherokee Nation member and Northeastern University professor, highlighted that Cherokee is the only syllabary created by a Native person for Native people. The Cherokee quickly learned to read and write using the syllabary, and in 1828, the first bilingual newspaper in the United States, the Cherokee Phoenix, was published in both English and Cherokee in the Cherokee capital of New Echota, Georgia. There are 574 federally recognized tribes in the United States. Federally recognized tribes in the United States have government-to-government relationships with the country, similar to sovereign nations. However, many tribes lack federal recognition, making them ineligible for government support. As of 2020, 66 tribes had received state recognition in 13 states, acknowledging their historical and contemporary existence. Native Americans cultivated many of the world's most important crops. Native American tribes had diverse diets reflecting their local food systems. They practiced agriculture and domesticated crops that now make up about 60% of the global food supply. Corn, created by indigenous farmers in southern Mexico and Guatemala around 10,000 years ago, had been grown by Native Americans for thousands of years before European colonists arrived. Additionally, Native Americans cultivated beans, squash, potatoes, and tomatoes. The Hoden Confederacy is one of the oldest living democracies in the world. The Hoden Confederacy, also known as the Iroquois Confederacy, was formed by 5 tribal nations and later joined by a 6th nation. It is considered one of the oldest participatory democracies on Earth and is united by the Great Law of Peace. Dr. Donald A. Grin Jr. highlights its influence on the United States Constitution, particularly in the concepts of sovereignty residing in the people, the separation of powers, and the recitation of laws. Unlike the U.S. Constitution, women actively participated in Haudenosaunee democracy. Native Americans were forcibly displaced by the Indian Relocation Act in 1830. Prior to colonization, Native Americans lived all across the land that is now known as the United States. But in 1830, President Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act. The act was spurred by the desire of white settlers to grow cotton in the South on the valuable lands of the Choctaw, Cherokee, Creek, and other tribes. The act was used to force Native Americans out of Alabama, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee, and to send them to Indian Territory located in what is now Oklahoma. Thousands died during these forced migrations. Native Americans were granted American citizenship in 1924. The Indian Citizenship Act was signed by President Calvin Coolidge on June 2, 1924. While some Native Americans were already U.S. citizens due to the 1887 Dawes Act, many were still denied the right to vote by states, which used discriminatory practices such as literacy tests. These practices continued until the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965. The Navajo Nation has the largest tribal land in the United States. The Navajo Nation is almost 25,000 square miles, an area about the size of West Virginia, and more than twice as large as Maryland. The nation extends into Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. In 2021, the Navajo Nation also surpassed the Cherokee Nation to become the largest tribe by population too, with nearly 400,000 registered members. And as you might expect, Navajo has the most speakers of any Native American language. Not all Native Americans tribes have their own land. There are 326 tribal land areas in the United States, compared to 574 federally recognized tribes. On average, the tribal land is only about 2.6% as large as the territory they occupied before colonization. Many tribes forcibly relocated by the U.S. government were left without any land. While it's commonly cited that only 22% of Native Americans live on tribal lands, a 2014 study by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development found that 68% of Native Americans and Alaskan Natives live on or near their homelands. Native Americans' death beliefs. Many Aboriginal tribal groups share the belief that this life is only part of a longer journey. When a person passes away, the spirit leaves the body. The spirit must be sent along its journey, otherwise it will stay and disturb the family. Native Americans view dying and death as the natural outcome of life. Both one's life and one's death have a purpose. Health, illness, healing, and failure to heal are part of how one lives one's life. Life is to be lived in a natural, balanced way.